Good morning, ACC. I'm so proud of you all for making it to church today after losing an hour of sleep. I have a very strong love-hate relationship with daylight savings. Maybe you're like me that you love the extra light at the end of the day, but you really love your sleep, and so you don't like it. In the fall, I tend to like it, right, because I get an extra hour of sleep, but I also don't like it because I love my sunshine. I need it. So kudos to you for being here today. And I love seeing all of our kids hanging out in their jammies today. I really wish I could be there with you in person today, but I am sick, and so I don't want to get anybody else sick. So we are pre-recording this message, but we wanted to do this because this message today is really important with our missions trip that is coming up for Joni and Friend's family retreat. So we are going to go ahead and get started with it today. So as you know, our missions trip for this year is going to be sending short-term missionaries up to Joni and Friend's family retreat. So I'll be explaining a little bit more about what family retreat is and what it entails. But first, I want to talk about just disability in general and what our call as Christians is to embrace the disability community, and more about how Jesus responded to this community as well. So I love Joni Eareckson Tada. She is the founder of Joni and Friends. And one of the things that she had spoken or talked about was that how she believed that her disability really helped her understand the incarnation of Jesus much better, and that she was able through that experience of becoming a quadriplegic at the age of 17, that God in a way had a disability. And that might sound like heresy, but hear me out on this, because what Joni talked about was that her experience of becoming a quadriplegic was that, she was still 100% herself, but her body was limited now. So it was just this new version of herself. And that she explained that Jesus coming down into human form was like God taking on a disability. He was still 100% God, but now had these limitations of a physical human body. And it reminded me of Aladdin, where Genie's talking about phenomenal cosmic power and itty bitty living space, right? And so that Jesus, in that sense, when he became human, took on the frailty of a human body and disability. And what that meant was that he understood our human condition. He knew what it was like to be physically limited. He also knew what it was like to be misunderstood and on the outside looking in, and to be alienated. Those were some of the experiences that Jesus had when he was here on earth. And theologian Miroslav Volf, he was a theologian from Croatia. He's written a book called Exclusion and Embrace. He grew up in Yugoslavia during these ethnic cleansing wars. And what he teaches is that we really need to embrace other people who are different than us, because really those people, even though they're different than us, and even though they might seem like an enemy in some ways, that they are part of our own true identity. And that is what Jesus did. Even though he was God, he could see his own humanity in the marginalized people that he served. He understood them. He felt deep compassion for them. So we're going to take a little bit closer look at the softer side of Jesus. Now, a lot of times we imagine Jesus to be, we see him in all these different aspects, right? We see him as superhero Jesus, who is calming storms and walking on water and turning water into wine. And sometimes we see Jesus and we remember his prophetic nature, where he's table flipping and criticizing both empire and religion. And then we also remember Jesus and his righteousness, who resists temptation, who he's sinless, right? He focuses on prayer and he's in tune with his Father. And we also remember the resurrected Jesus, who is sitting at the right hand of the Father. And he is all of these things, but he is also caregiver Jesus. He's the one who gathers children into his lap, and he feeds 5,000 people, and he washes dirty feet. And he spends his ministry constantly meeting the physical, spiritual, and emotional needs of other people. Now, a lot of times in our culture, caretaking and caregiving is really seen as women's work. I want to push back on that a little bit and say that caregiving is holy work. Stepping into the physical needs and the physical mess of people's lives is something that Jesus did time and time again, and he honored others who did the same. So we're going to look at a couple of scriptures where Jesus does this, and then we're going to go into talking about family retreat. So Luke 5:17 through 26 is the story of Jesus healing a paralyzed man. Now this story also shows up in Mark 2 and Matthew 9. So let's go ahead and read it. It says, "One day when Jesus was teaching, some Pharisees and teachers of the religious law were sitting nearby. It seemed that these men showed up from every village in all of Galilee and Judea, as well as from Jerusalem. And the Lord's healing power was strongly with Jesus. Some men came carrying a paralyzed man on a mat. They tried to take him inside to Jesus, but they couldn't reach him because of the crowd. So they went up to the roof and took off some tiles. Then they lowered the sick man on his mat down into the crowd, right in front of Jesus. Seeing their faith, Jesus said to the men, 'Young man, your sins are forgiven.'" Now, one of the things I first recognize in this passage is that accessibility for disabled people has been a problem since the very beginning, right? It's not a new problem. And I imagine this, sometimes we don't really think about the logistics of what this took to have happen. We kind of read through it and gloss over, and we get to the healing part where he gets up and he walks. But I want to talk about what it took to get this man to Jesus. It took 4 of his friends to take him from wherever he was prior to this, to take him all the way to this house, but they still can't get to Jesus. So now they're going to take all 4 of them and the man on this mat and take him up to the roof. They're going to take apart the roof, and then they're going to somehow, maybe with ropes or something, they're going to lower him in through the roof to get to Jesus. And what Jesus says to these men is that their friend, this disabled man, his healing comes because of the faithfulness of his friends. It's because of their commitment and their sacrifice that this man gets to experience Jesus. And not just experience Jesus in his presence, but also the physical and the spiritual healing that Jesus brings. And now this required persistence on the behalf of his friends. And that's really hard work. And so I just want to take a minute to recognize the caregiving that these friends did on behalf of their friend. Now, also in later on in Luke 14, Jesus is at a dinner party with a bunch of religious leaders, and they start to have this conversation about hospitality in this type of setting. And so Jesus says to them, "When you give a dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or wealthy neighbors, because otherwise they'll just invite you in return as repayment. But when you give a banquet or a reception, invite the poor, the disabled, the lame, and the blind. And you'll be blessed because they cannot repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." And so one of the men starts talking about, "Oh yes, it is so blessed to be at the table together." And Jesus kind of corrects him. He gives him this rebuke in the form of a parable. And so this is what he says. He goes on to tell this parable of a man who's throwing a dinner party, but whose friends are making up all sort of excuses about why they can't be there with him. And so the man is understandably, he's upset, but this is what he tells his servant to do in this parable. He says, "Go out quickly to the streets and the lanes of the city and bring in here the poor, the disabled, the blind, and the lame." And the servant, after returning, said, "Sir, what you have commanded has been done, and there's still room." Then the master told the servant, "Go out into the highways and along the edges and compel them to come in so that my house may be filled with guests." And this is a call of the church body for inclusion. This is a call to embrace people who have disabilities. And so our missions trip this year is that we are going to live out this call of embracing others by sending short-term missionaries up to Joni and Friend's family retreat. So these retreats were started as a way to bring encouragement to families who are affected by disability and to really embrace them in the struggle that can often accompany raising children with disabilities. And for some families, this is the one time a year they can all go to church together. We've been going to Joni and Friends family retreat for many years now, and these are the stories that I hear. They're like, oh my gosh, it's so good to be at church together, because that just doesn't happen in our community. And for some kids, this is the one time of year that they have a friend to sit next to. This is the call to inclusion, and Joni and Friends provides an amazing opportunity for that. So our family retreat experience started, about 10, 11 years ago. I think I was pregnant with our youngest. Levi, our oldest, was about 6 years old, I believe. Mila, our oldest daughter, was 4, 5, something like that. Probably 5. And we were still really new to the disability community when we adopted Mila. We knew that she was going to have some physical limitations with her cerebral palsy, but we were kind of maybe blindsided a little bit by some of the behavioral things that we had started to experience with her. For those of you who don't know, she functions very much like a child with autism, and so needs some of those really strict boundaries, but needs lots of coaching and encouragement, and we were getting really, really tired. Levi, our oldest, had not been diagnosed with epilepsy yet at that time, but we were starting to kind of recognize some of those differences in him, and so we were, like I said, we were really tired when we got up there. And I just remember getting up there and feeling like, oh my gosh, like I feel normal up here. And I don't think I realized how not normal I had been feeling prior to getting up there. But all of a sudden my eyes were open to this community that was embracing me and loving my family and loving my kids. When in lots of other places, we kept running up against these roadblocks for accessibility, for accommodations, for their needs to be met. And so this time at retreat was, emotionally fulfilling, and spiritually, God was really speaking to us as a family about what it meant to live in, to be in the disability community, but also to be in a church, and how to bring that acceptance and that embrace and that inclusion into our church ministries. And so a few years ago, we had the opportunity to be a featured family for Joni and Friends family retreat. And so I'm going to share that video with you now, just a little bit of it. And so you can see and hear a little bit more about how family retreat is a blessing for families that are affected by disability.
We are going to Joni and Friends family retreat.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Grunow family! Really feel the love of God completely surround your family 24 hours a day, and know that this is actually what heaven is like, that our kids are completely accepted, our family members are completely accepted for who they are, knowing that they're God's creation, knowing that God set them up that way, and be in an environment where it's true.
So Jeff and I have a great marriage, and even though raising kids with special needs is difficult and trying, we really do cling to each other through a lot of those trials. And coming up to retreat is just a reminder of the great relationship that we have, and spending time together for our date night. Getting a chance to take a nap in the middle of the afternoon when that is never going to happen at home. And then to spend time with other couples and just sharing our lives with each other. It's always refreshing for our marriage when we get to come up here and do that. And so to be up here is like getting that boost we need to make it through the rest of the year. It's been one of those things that was, I think, life-saving for us because raising kids with special needs is a lot like a marathon. It's long and it's grueling and it's tiring. And so to be able to have that much needed rest along the way and that encouragement and that nourishment it's been amazing for us. So even though Family Retreat is really focused and designed for my older kids with special needs, it really is a big part of my younger kids, my typical kids, because it's the time where they get to feel not overshadowed by their siblings. It's a time where they get mom and dad's attention. And so it's good for them to meet friends in that situation where they know that they're not the only ones out there who go through this. I think every family that is raising a special needs child needs to be at a family retreat. I don't think we realized how desperate we were for what we get at family retreat until we actually came our first year. And now we look at it and we're like, we will never miss a family retreat. We need to be at one every single year. And so for families out there who think that, oh, we're doing okay, we don't really need that, I would tell you, don't kid yourself. You need it probably more than you realize. And I think every family needs to be at one.
So that video is just what I've shown today is just a little clip of the full video. So if you'd like to watch the full video, you can find it. If you search up Joni and Friends and Grew Now Family, you'll be able to see that. But I love just that overview of what camp does for families and how important it is. And one of the main reasons that is so refreshing for families is that your children at family retreat are assigned a short-term missionary. And so these are volunteers who come up to camp, pay their own way, fundraise, send out mission letters, and they come up to camp with the sole purpose of serving those affected by disability. And so that they might get matched up with a child who has a disability, an adult with a disability, or they could be assigned to a sibling who needs a friend for the week. And so short-term missionaries and the work that they do up there is integral to the success of family retreat. And it really is missional work. And I know that going to Sanger doesn't sound as cool as going overseas on a missions trip, but this is our Jerusalem and this is our Judea. And for this year, this is what's available to us. And so I want to challenge us to remember that going up to a family retreat like this, that mission isn't always glamorous, and it actually rarely is. And mission up here might look like, similar to the story about bringing people into a luncheon, that it might mean filling their plate or cutting their food or feeding them. Missions work is messy and it's hard and it's uncomfortable, but it's absolutely worth it because, like I said before, this is the holy work of Jesus, serving others in this caretaking capacity. And he did this for us. He did things that we couldn't do for ourselves. And that, especially in, missions work is hard and it's uncomfortable and it's messy, but it's so worth it because this, like I said before, is the holy work of Jesus. He did things that we couldn't do for ourselves, and that's what he calls us to do for other people as well. And I also want to challenge you that if you're thinking about going up to family retreat as a missionary, remember that this is not just about serving these families. That is part of it. But there's this very unique reciprocal relationship that happens up there. Because remember, an embrace requires two people. So be prepared for God to teach you something about your own true identity in Christ through this community. And there's also a great thing about family retreat is that you have the opportunity that once you leave family retreat, that you get to continue living out this mission here at home, in our church, and in our community as well. So family retreat is happening April 10th through the 15th, and that's up at Wonder Valley in Sanger. And if you are even considering going, I really want you to watch this next video. These are testimonies from short-term missionaries about their experiences up at family retreat.
What you can expect when you come here is to be surprised and to feel like you can let go of so many of your inhibitions.
When I was coming into being STM, I was expecting more of it to be like a task that I had to do, and I didn't think it'd be that fun.
You can expect to be really tired and to bless others and be blessed at the same time.
To do the job of STM, it's very important to be flexible, physically and emotionally, to be open to whatever your camper wants to do, and to be understanding and loving.
It is an amazing blessing to be a part of such a wonderful ministry.
I try to make it as fun as possible for my camper, just having to make sure they have a great time, do whatever they want to do. It's not about me, so it's making it about them and just being a friend to them and a friend to their family also.
So if you're thinking about coming but not sure if you want to be a short-term missionary because maybe you have a disability, well, I have a disability and have been a volunteer for the past 3 or 4 years and was a camper for many years before that. So definitely you don't have to let a disability hold you back from considering being a short-term missionary.
For someone who was signing up to be an STM for the first time, I would expect an absolutely unforgettable experience of service and ministry to a loved one who's a member of a family. And the family comes here to be refreshed, and you're able to come and bring that refreshment and that encouragement to that family.
You'll come here, you'll be trained, you'll know exactly what to do, and you'll feel a tremendous feeling of support from your peers.
There is nothing like being hugged by one of the campers here. It's just absolutely fantastic.
The reason why I love Joni and Friends is because there really is no other place like it. It is a little slice of heaven, and each time I come, I'm just touched by the kids, and you think you're serving them, but really, in reality, they're serving you much more than you could ever imagine.
And it will be a stretching experience, and it'll be a little difficult at times, but it'll be so worth it.
And going home is so hard because you leave a little piece of your heart here, and you have more of the love of Jesus each time you come, and I'm just so thankful for this opportunity.
If you already have a God-given love for people in your heart, I think you're ready. I think you're really ready.
I would definitely recommend Joni and Friends if somebody wants to serve. And the reason for that is it's completely life-changing. I mean, I've been to other camps, and they're really great, but there's something special about Joni and Friends that you actually come to experience it.
I absolutely love working with our STMs when we're up at family retreat. And you might notice that there was some wild, crazy hair going on there. There's lots of themed dress-up days that are super fun to participate in, so that's what that's all about. But I just want to encourage you that being an STM, you don't have to fit any certain type of profile. We need all types. We need young, old, male, female, especially men. We really need men up there. A lot of times the STMs, the females way outnumber the males. And that's really a problem because our boy campers generally outnumber the girl campers up there. And so, but these young men who are up there, they need peers and they need mentors to come alongside of them. And so guys, I don't want you to think because this isn't maybe a construction project that you might be used to doing, don't think that because it isn't that type of work that you don't have something to offer here. We need athletes with both male and female. Some of these kids up at camp are so high energy, and we need people who can keep up with them. It's a fantastic conditioning workout for the week. We also need quiet types. A lot of these kids get overwhelmed and overstimulated at some of these environments. And so we need people who can just sit quietly and read books with them or take them on a walk. We also need short-term missionaries to be paired up with siblings, someone who can listen and understand and just have fun with them. And Joni and Friends is fantastic about matching up your gifts with the right camper, so don't worry about that. Another thing that we need up at there, we need nurses. We need specially trained nurses who are going to be able to support families while they're up there. So if you have nursing skills, come talk to me. Sign up. We need some more nurses up there for sure. And if you can't be an STM or a camp nurse, there's other ways you can also get involved. You can help by preparing some welcome and goodie bags for both the families and the short-term missionaries there as they're going to be up there. You can donate. You can donate to support a family. You can donate to support an STM. But donating is a way that you can get involved there as well. So if any of the things that I have shared with you today about the holy work of caretaking that Jesus has called us to, about what it means to be an STM or to how to serve these families, I want to encourage you to sign up for this retreat on our app. You can put in all of your information, and then we'll be giving you the link to actually register with Joni and Friends on their website once we kind of have our team together. But I want to encourage you again to remember that that this is the holy work of Jesus, that he has called us to embrace those who have disability, to bring them from exclusion to inclusion into our community. And Family Retreat is the perfect opportunity to experience that. So I'm going to close us in prayer, and then Abby and the worship team are going to come up and lead us for the rest of this morning. Father, I want to thank you so much for being an example to us of how to step into the hard and messy work of disability community, and how you showed us the ways that we can embrace others. I pray for anybody who is here today who is considering that, Lord, that you would prick their heart, that you would confirm in their heart if they're supposed to go. And I pray that you would give them boldness for if there's anybody out there who has fear about what this might mean, or wants to go but is scared to do it, Lord, that you would give them the courage and the confidence that this is what you're calling them to do, that or that you're going to equip and train them and do a new work in their lives while they're at Family Retreat. So we thank you again for this morning, even though it has been different than our regular services. We thank you, Lord, for being faithful no matter where we are, Lord, whether we're online or in person or at Man Camp, Lord, that you're meeting us right where we are. We thank you again for your love for us, and I pray that we would continue to learn from you and to do the holy work that you have called us to. In your name, amen.